Welcome back to another youth-centered podcast. I'm very excited about our title that we're going to be talking about today, as well as the two guest people that we have here to talk about this incredible project we're working on here in North Andover. First, I have Terry Holland. Most people know Terry as proprietor of Starchy's Pizza. And we also have Rick Green, who is involved with almost every Fields project we've done since I've been here, and an amazing volunteer in the community. So first of all, fellas, thanks for coming on the podcast.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We always like to start off a little bit with our guest, maybe talking a little bit about themselves. Both of these guys are very well known with the town, but for people who may not know Rick and Terry, who are you guys?
So I'm Terry Holland. Grew up in North Andover my whole life. As Rick said, I'm owner of Starchy's. And I've been on several committees, one being CPA, which has worked with a lot of the recreation projects over time.
My name is Rick Green. I've lived in town for over 20 years. I'm a registered professional civil engineer. Currently working in construction, heavy civil construction. I've been involved with the Fields Committee for many years. As Rick said, I've been involved with a lot of the field projects that have gone on in town, and very excited to talk about today's project.
Yes, and today's topic, we're going to be talking about what's known as the recreation complex. For people real new to this, this is a project that we're going to obviously spend a lot of time talking about the history and where we're at right now. But the playing fields between the middle school, the Atkinson School, and obviously the new Early Childhood Learning Center and kindergarten has been a marquee area, not just for the schools, but also for the community and a lot of the sports programs. Alvaro Hayes Stadium was the football stadium for our high school, and obviously everyone still uses that complex, but it is a very outdated complex. So Rick and Terry are going to talk about how the concept came and what we're hoping to do, and ultimately, 2 years down the road, I think every resident in North Andover is going to be extremely proud of this project that these guys and others are involved with. But before we get started, let me talk a little bit about the Fields Committee. North Andover Fields Committee was established in the early 2000s. Town Manager Mark Reese appointed me to work with two competing baseball leagues. At that point, it was the North Andover Boosters Club Little League and the North Andover Little League. And we had some stresses around running two competing programs and field allocation, et cetera, et cetera. And after a year of pretty much negotiations, we got back to one baseball program. And from there, we put together a fields committee, which I represented the town manager. In the terms of the fields committee was looking at, first of all, field allocation, making sure everything was fair, working with all the youth groups. And then it actually grew to where we ended up doing some long-range planning, and obviously today's project is the biggest one we've done in terms of fields and new fields and revitalizing some of our fields. We also, when finances were tough in the early 2000s, we also took on the possibility of being sponsorships for field maintenance. And each one of the youth groups now for almost 15 years now has been involved with cutting grass, maintaining the fields, and having our fields look the best they've ever done. So the Fields Committee has been in operation since the early 2000s. It represents all the major sports groups that are in town from the youth. It has some ex officio members like myself representing the town manager, Department of Public Works, the high school athletic director, and then some at-large representatives that are not technically involved with a specific youth group, and both Rick and Terry at this point are at-large representatives too. So Fields Committee is active. We meet 12 times a year. We do a lot of work behind the scenes. So that's a little history of how the Fields Committee got started. Now, guys, if we can talk about the big project here, remember the recreation complex. And Terry, I think you and I were probably the only people that were originally on the Fields Committee when this first came to light. But can you tell our listeners how the idea first started?
Well, it was back in 2010 when we started this. We had a lot of dreams but no money, and we kept looking for ways to find money and things to do. At the time, there was nothing really available. So Steve Foster, who it's probably one of the best finds North Andover ever had as far as an engineer and pushing projects along in town. Volunteered his time to draw up a set of plans for us and get us going on the project, and at least give somebody a vision on what we were looking for. And we took that around and we tried to sell it, and finally we were able to convince the town manager to get on board. He put together a plan for us, and here we are today.
And Rick, how did we get, and at this point the town manager was Andrew Mailer, who has just left us, but what was the approach of, first of all, as a Fields Committee, we were all on board with this. This was something we wanted. But obviously we don't have, as Terry said, the money or the authorization to move on a project like this. How did we get Andrew Mailer involved and his support in getting this project off the ground?
Well, we had a little, a small committee in 2015 consisting of Terry, myself, Jim Mealy, and Bruce Thibodeau, who was the DPW director at that time. We got together and we were able to speak with Andrew Mailer at the time and convince him of the benefit of this project to the town. In 2015 at town meeting, $50,000 was approved for somewhat of a feasibility study for redeveloping at the time, the middle school fields area. That money was approved, and from there, the design consultant, Waterfield Design Group, they produced some conceptual design plans back in October of 2016, and that is from where we kind of kicked off our road to the design.
Sure. And Terry, you wear so many hats in town, and one of yours is you were on the Youth Service and Recreation Board, and also sit on, as the capacity of that, on the Community Preservation Committee. Can you tell our folks a little bit about what community preservation is and their involvement with this project?
So it's, in my opinion, community preservation is one of the best things that happened to North Andover. We can get projects done that the general budget doesn't seem to have money for or move forward. So the open space projects, the recreation projects, the affordable housing projects, all have been able to be done under the watch of CPA. But I do have to mention, nothing can happen unless we get the support of the selectmen and the town manager. So in the past, some of these projects, the recreation projects, weren't priority to them. This administration, it is a priority to them. And we've been able to get things like Dale Street, McAvoy Field, now and also all the playgrounds, and then the recreation complex is next on the plate. And it's been an incredible help and a great gift to every kid in North Andover.
Yeah, I don't think people know how much community preservation and Andrew Mailer's vision in terms of revitalizing all of our playgrounds and supporting us in the needs for new fields. Obviously, today we're talking about the recreation complex, but you don't have to look farther than the Dale Street athletic field, as well as the incredible revitalization of the McAvoy Field, the former Chadwick Field, to get on that. Rick, as this program started to get a little bit of steam and people were saying, like, yeah, this is something we might want to do, you actually spearheaded with that subcommittee, of which Terry sits on, as well as some town officials. If I'm correct, you've had more than enough community meetings. Can you talk a little bit to our listeners of why we had community meetings on this, and what was the outcome of those community meetings?
Actually, the Board of Selectmen appointed a subcommittee after the conceptual designs came out in October, and I think we were appointed in November of 2016. First community meeting was in December of 2016, and since that point we've had 21 meetings up until October 2018. The importance of the subcommittee meetings was to gather the different input from the user groups who would ultimately use the facility, and also the abutters to take into account their concerns. What the committee tried to do was, through this 2-year period, was take into account all relevant comments and try to incorporate those into what was considered the final conceptual plan. That information in turn was passed on to the designer, Waterfield Design Group, to incorporate into the plans, and that's how we've kind of developed the design. So it's always, our intent has always been to take the community input and the end users and make this a facility for the entire community of North Andover, not just the athletic groups, but everyone, from the playgrounds to the smaller children all the way up to the senior citizens. So we've tried to make this an all-inclusive project, and I think through the many meetings we've had, and that's not even counting the Board of Selectmen, Conservation, Planning Board meetings, and other town meetings. So I think we've really done a great job in terms of getting public input into this project. We've not forced it down people's throats. Again, we've tried to consider everyone's concerns and making this a very successful project for the town.
Let's talk a little bit about what everybody wants to know, in both of you, and it was actually really fun. I remember the first meeting we sat in the conference room and we cookie cutted all these little things we'd like to see in the complex, and obviously a lot of input from people. But now that we're getting close to getting this project off the ground, what should our residents know? What is going to be in the recreation complex?
So I'll let Rick get into the details, but one thing I did want to mention is I think the recreation complex and all the meetings that we had, we were able to incorporate something from all age groups and all participants. And I think that's probably the best part of this for me, is I see that this is a complex for everybody. It's for every age, every group, every league. So Rick can get into the details of what we're putting in.
Yeah, so again, as we worked through the subcommittee meetings, we altered and made revisions to the conceptual plan, and that was to take into account different user groups' comments. And what you're going to see in this facility now, and I think it will be a fantastic facility for the community, is you're going to have 2 artificial turf athletic fields. One will be the main field, where we'll have a 90-foot baseball field, but that'll still be able to use for lacrosse and football. You'll also have another field that'll be for softball, 50-70 baseball, and also we'll have another soccer field. Those cater to the athletic groups. We also have a multi-purpose court, which can be used for street hockey, tennis, or pickleball. We've got 2 playgrounds. One is for a 2 to 5 age group, and one is from a 5 to 12 age group. We have bocce courts. We have shuffleboard. We have 2 half-court basketball courts. Originally, we only had 1 half-court, but we've added a second one near the bocce and shuffleboard courts. And also, in terms of the community, we've got a walking path, which I believe is about a quarter mile around the facility and through the facility, which will provide a great opportunity, another alternative from the old common of just walking around in circles. This will be a nice walking path for everyone to use. We've got picnic areas. One of the main features we have out front is by the middle school is we have an amphitheater which will be built into the natural terrain of the hill. So it'll blend in beautifully with the landscape. That'll be used by the middle school and also probably on weekends or so for other types of concerts. We've got picnic areas. We've got shade trees that'll be installed. I think overall we're adding about 59 trees to the complex itself. The amphitheater, I also should add too, will have a roof over the area for the performers so they will not get rained on. We've got a concession stand. That'll be a large building about 30 feet by 20 feet. That'll also have restrooms in it. We have another restroom facility further into the field. We've got an exercise stretching area that's going to be along the walking path, which will give people the opportunity to stretch out, similar to what people may recognize as like parkour, which is an exercise area. So we've got a lot of different features, and again, that was collected through all the different ideas from the user groups, and to be able to cater to each and every age group in the town of North Andover. Again, not just athletics, but everyone. So this is an all-inclusive facility.
Yeah, it's going to be it's something for everybody. I know that I'm going to be planning on moving the children's shows and the summer concerts on the Common down to the amphitheater. Obviously, we're going to have lots of requests, and once it's actually done, Rick, I know Andrew Mailer was very adamant about this. Who will control that, and how will people get access in terms of like using fields and things like that?
Well, the intent from the start, realizing how large a facility this is going to be in the various user groups, it's a little bit different than, say, a baseball field or a soccer field. So It's always been the intent of Andrew Mailer and the subcommittee to have a separate group. Now, whether that group reports to the Fields Committee or how that works, I'm not sure, but they'll manage the facility and take into considerations, hours of lighting, different activities. But I think all in all, it's probably going to have to be closely combined with the efforts of the Fields Committee in terms of scheduling the fields. But mainly, it's about making sure that this facility is maintained, and we often have problems with other fields as to whose responsibility that is. With so many different groups using this field, we felt it was very important that we have somewhat of a different committee to watch over this, and also taking the concerns of the abutters to make sure that we're good neighbors.
Absolutely. And as we proceeded in last year, we had all those meetings like you've had, and then we were leading up to town meeting, because at town meeting, obviously our residents, as we do every year at town meeting, had to approve the spending of especially the CPA grant. And I know all of the three of us are very anxious about this. Terry, how do you think that went at town meeting 2018 on this project?
I think it went terrific. As always, the townspeople in North Andover supported the kids in North Andover in the CPA projects that we put forward. We put a lot of work into looking into these projects to make sure that they're going to be a good thing for the town of North Andover. And I think that the townspeople support us in every way at town meeting.
Absolutely. And as Terry said at the beginning of our podcast, we always got to figure out how we're going to pay for this. So obviously we talked about the huge grant we've gotten from CPA and obviously some of the town financial commitments. But Rick and Terry, can you talk a little bit about, as we proceed to start to put a shovel in the ground, the fundraising plan to raise the rest of the money and the commitment that our youth groups have to participate on this?
Sure. We've been talking about fundraising, and part of the construction cost from which the town manager developed a strategy to pay for this project was about approximately $1.25 million, and that was from private donations consisting of the sports groups and also corporate outside sponsors. So what we've done now is we've actually interviewed Richard Blaine from Richard Blaine Associates, a fundraising consultant, and we feel very comfortable with bringing him on board. He's been involved with the actual funding of the Youth Center project, as well as St. Michael's and many other projects in the Merrimack Valley. So we believe that he is the group to take care of this fundraising campaign. We are currently getting underway with this campaign, and we're going to develop a strategy, a uniform strategy between the private donors and the user group, so that the message to everybody out there is clear and it's uniform that how we want to raise money for this project. And we'll be kicking that off very shortly. I believe in March we should be actively going on that.
And it's pretty known that since 2010, when Terry and I and a few other people first started this concept, we created what was called the New Fields and Facility Account, where every year the youth groups charged a little extra money on registrations, and then at the yearly end, they actually donated this stuff to the town. We just donated an additional close to $41,000 this past month that the selectmen approved. But since 2010, we have raised close to $400,000. A lot of this money will actually partake in our participation, in terms of the youth group's commitment to this financially. So that's been a really nice thing with that. Terry, did you want to say something on that?
Well, I just wanted to say that's an important part of the fundraising and probably the major part of the fundraising, but there's still going to be a lot of grassroots fundraising. We're going to be out in the community. We're going to be doing different things, raising money so that everybody can help out in some way. This is going to take the entire town to get behind, to get all our funding and to make sure this project gets the support it deserves.
Absolutely. Rick, and we always defer to Rick many times on this. He's our point person. I'm not sure where we'd be without him. Rick, let's talk a little bit about the timeline. I just mentioned we're getting close to putting a shovel in the ground. Can you kind of tell our listeners what the time frame looks like?
Sure. In terms of design, Waterfield Design Group is currently in design for the project. Submissions have been made to the Planning Board and the Conservation Commission, and I believe We should have one more meeting with the Conservation Commission meeting before that is hopefully approved. Waterfield has answered and responded to the peer reviewers' comments satisfactorily, and I believe we should be all set with that. In terms of the planning board, we may have one, possibly two more before we get through that process. So we're looking right now, probably the end of late March, to get these plans out to bid, with construction to follow in early spring. And that construction is going to extend into the fall, through the winter, and into next spring. I would expect sometime next summer, early fall, that this project would be complete.
Yeah, it's going to be pretty amazing. I keep telling people, as you drive down 125 or you come up 125, when this project is officially done, it is going to be the jewel of North Andover, and we're going to be the envy of many communities. Let me ask you something, Rick and Terry. With Andrew leaving a couple weeks ago now, I've already gotten a couple of comments saying, with Andrew gone, is the project going to move on? And obviously, we've said many times, Andrew has been the big push to get this done. You and I, the three of us, have gotten Andrew's commitment that this is going to move on. But maybe to our listeners, just to confirm that the new administration is still going to support this program like the past administration.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Andrew put all the things in place to move this thing forward. And we have the complete support of the selectmen in town. So I feel we're gonna keep pushing, and we're so excited about it. I don't think Rick and myself or the Fields Committee would ever let it slow down or we'd miss a beat at this point.
Absolutely. I think we gotta give a shout out to some people. I mean, I'm the first to admit that this Rick and Terry. Definitely the two big push. But guys, who else are some of the people that have been involved? Who's on that subcommittee, and who are the people besides you two and Andrew that have actually made sure this is becoming a reality?
Well, the subcommittee consisted of Terry, myself, Todd Dow, Derek Wessel, Rosemary Smadale, Deborah Farley, and I think that was it. So there was 7 of us. So it was a pretty good group. They had a lot of input. They were very instrumental in, through the public hearings we had. Also, we should probably give a shout out to Jim Mealy from the school department, who's worked with Terry and I since really the inception of this project. Bruce Thibodeau, who's no longer with us as the DPW director, is retired. He was very instrumental in pushing this project along. And again, I think, even though Andrew Mailer is gone, I still think he will have a strong influence on this project. I told him I would be reaching out to him as we go through the project with any questions that came up. But also Denise Casey has stepped up now, the assistant town manager. She is the point person that we're working with, and I think she's going to be very good at continuing the message or the commitment that Andrew had, as well as all of the town committees, as Terry mentioned.
Yeah, and also our town departments have been great. Rick in particular has been dealing with everything from conservation to planning, health, and everything else. And obviously our Board of Selectmen has been very supportive of what we're doing here. And at this point in time, both Dee Casey and Rick Green are updating the selectmen on pretty much every time the selectmen meet, an update on the program. Terry?
So, and going back to day one, like I said, when Steve Foster took the time on his own by himself to draw all those plans, to give us a vision, and then give that to the board that we have for the Fields Committee, which changes all the time with different presidents and that type of thing. But we needed their support and their push the entire time too. So the Fields Committee has been a major part of making this happen to the day we started.
Absolutely. Guys, we could talk about this for hours, but want to finish up with a couple other questions. This time of the podcast, we usually like to try to give our guests what we call their final words. So how about Terry, final word you'd like to say to our listeners about this project?
I just can't tell you enough how excited I am about this project. It's a dream that I wasn't sure was ever going to happen, and it's looking more and more like reality every day, and I think we're there. I just want to thank the people in town who supported this project, all the boards and all the citizens who voted at town meeting. And, you know, I'm looking forward to it. I think it's going to be an asset to the town. Like Rick said, we're going to be envy of every town in the area, and I can't say enough about it.
Rick?
Just to echo Terry's sentiments, I fully agree with everything he said. This is going to be a fantastic project for the town of North Andover. It's in a fabulous location right off of Route 125 and Main Street, and I think this will be the focal point of the town, and again, will be an envy of many neighboring towns, because this is an all-inclusive facility, not just for athletics, and I think it's really going to serve the community very well. And proud to be a part of it, and we will continue to push on. And thank you again for everybody's support at town meeting, all the different boards in town, the Department of Public Works, and everybody who served on a committee along this process. It's been appreciated.
I'll kind of finish with where we started. For me and Terry, I think we might be the only ones from the original Fields Committee to see where we are since 2004. The times where we didn't have really nice fields, they weren't able to be maintained the way we want, all the way up to creating all these different things. The new projects we've actually already brought online, and then obviously this project's going to be unbelievable. We know Rick Green's going to live forever, but Terry Holland and I both think this might be our last major project that we're going to work on, but it's going to be a great way to go out, because this project is going to be simply amazing. DKC, along with our IT director, Chris McClure, are going to be putting together up on the town website an actual page that people can check in on a daily basis if they choose about the project, where we're going, facts and answers. This podcast will be uploaded on that. And obviously, any questions that residents have, they're going to be able to actually log on to the website, ask a question, and someone will get back to them with the right answer. And I have a feeling that might be you, Rick, a lot. But it's going to be a great project. And again, we're hoping, you know, this spring to see that first shovel in the ground, and you know, close to maybe 18 months, 2 years from now, you join us all when we open it up the first day. It's going to be pretty amazing. So I want to thank both Terry Holland and Rick Green for coming on the podcast. They are two of the most humble guys in the world, but I got to tell you, on Rick Gorman's Mount Rushmore of North Andover volunteers, these two are definitely on it. We have tremendous volunteers in North Andover, but these two are two of the best, and we're really lucky to have them. And I think when you see this project done, you'll know what I mean. So I want to thank you guys for coming on. I know you're both very busy.
Thanks, Rick.
Thank you for having us.
Let's talk real quick. Still getting some great feedback on all of our podcasts. Got some good feedback on our Crusaders podcast we did last week. And next week, we're going to actually be doing two podcasts. We have Allison Colarusso, Sarah Hickey, and Christina Payot from the North Andover High School Focus Program is going to be coming in to talk about all the amazing things they're doing up there at the high school. And both Allison and Sarah as coordinators, and Christina as a student. So I'm really looking forward to that. And then Denise Casey, who we've mentioned in this podcast, our assistant town manager, is coming on in preparation for our annual job fair. She's going to be doing a podcast called Teenagers Guide to Employment, and it's going to give kids a lot of good ideas as they prepare to come down and talk to business owners in our job fair. So looking forward to those next two podcasts. And as we always say at every ending podcast, we always say too much passion is not enough passion.